Welcome to another Thursday evening session. My name is Kat. This is Cat Space Buckets, and my mentor and Fan Horsey. Good evening. How are you?
Hello. Yeah, good. And this isn't a coffin behind me, by the way.
Really? Oh, just like I was just about to say, like, rest in
It
peace.
looks like.
Alrighty. So today's topic is part 2 of mental health. Let's get started, shall we? Okay. The first point or question I have is, what kind of activities could we do to boost our mental health?
To improve our mental health or to boost our.
To boost. Oh, well, you could say both, I guess, to improve or boost our mental health.
Anything that we enjoy, really.
Well, that's true. Actually, one of the things I actually joined was actually Men's Shed. And like what you'll find a lot of the time is, and I don't mean to be sexist, but a lot of the time there's like 100,000 charities and support networks for women, but there's not that many support networks for men for some reason. And Men's Shed was actually one of the few support networks where it's just men's only keeping men active. And that worked a treat because we built things like tables and chairs, and would build things for the local church as well. And I got to I actually built some toys for my nephews. I built some magnetic fish for my nephews so they could go fishing.
So you actually did something instead of, because a lot of men's sheds, I get the impression that there's a little bit of work goes on for 5 minutes, and then there's an awful lot of talking and drinking cups of tea, which is fine because that's the purpose of it, to encourage each other. So you actually finished some projects.
Oh, absolutely. Like there was like things that I did because they would ask you to be there at like 9, right? If you wanted to, because 9 would always be like morning tea. And then you the rest of the time you just spend doing whatever you did. And then you'd have another tea, like afternoon tea, and you did something else at 3, and then you finished off, and then after that was it. And it was great because for what I was told, not all men's sheds are the same. So some men's sheds actually let women join them, whereas some are just strictly men's only. But I just found it was great because I could hear some of the stories that a lot of the men had that retired, and it actually got them out of the house. And to be honest, it actually kept them living a longer lives, because being active actually increases your mental health and actually increases your longevity.
I think
that's right. Getting into something you enjoy doing and having something to occupy you will extend your life and will make you a lot happier, regardless of what it is.
I think to boost our mental health, I think it's important to, get out of bed, get up, shower, have breakfast, cup of tea or coffee, go for a walk, cycle, exercise, play games, listen to music, sing, dance, go talk to friends, meet up with friends, watch movies, house chores, whatever. I think it's just important for us in the capacity that we're in is to keep ourselves occupied and keep our minds healthy and our thinking way of life healthy. That's why I want to.
I also think that whatever, people around us, to help them. It's actually harder to help yourself than to help other people, isn't it? You try and G yourself up, and it's much more difficult to do what they're into. Simple as that. Even if we're not into what they're into, we should say, yeah, go for it. Enjoy what you do, and what you're good at, and what you want to occupy yourself with. Go for it. And that's the thing, encouraging other people to get on with what they want to do, affirming them, and even commenting on what they do. If they're building things or whatever it happens to be, or writing something, what it happens to be, getting involved and saying, well, show me. Oh, that's good. I like that. That's you've achieved something there. Just helping other people by speaking with them about what they've been doing. And that also helps them to get on with what they want to do as well, because someone else is interested. Because there's nothing worse than no one being interested in what you're doing, is there? you think, well, it's not relevant if no one's interested. So that's the thing for me. I appreciate it when people comment on what and say, look, I like that. Or even if they say, look, I didn't like that, but let's talk about it. It's still better than nothing at all.
Absolutely. I think it's always important. The only point I will say is I think it's important to be able to, all of us, to let what's inside of us outside, to talk to people. I think it's very important to say how you feel and think. And this way it opens the door to removing such a stigma, and that using that to boost our mental health, to talk to people, encourage people, enlighten people, educate people, especially like myself, and just sort of, make it positive, make it happy, make it enlightening, smile a lot. The second,
and even just before we go on, even if you haven't got anybody to speak to and you're on your own at home, I have found this on occasion when I've been on my own at home for a while and I just feel a bit flat. Go out, even if it's to go up to the supermarket and buy a loaf of bread, or go to a coffee shop and have a cup of coffee, even on your own. Just that interaction, even with someone at the coffee shop saying, I want a cappuccino and thanks very much, and here's the money and whatever. That helps. Just simple interactions help to reassure you that you are in fact worth something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I would like to point out an important factor, since we're talking about positivity, but in Australia, if you're feeling alone and you're feeling like you have no one to talk to, just unsure of what to do, please go to www.lifeline.org.au or ring 131114, and we'll put the link and the description and phone number. Also, it's good to, go out shopping, like exercise.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. There are things like Lifeline to help, but I mean, that may not actually be necessary. It may not be necessary to do that. Just the simple act of going out, even going for a walk, walking around the block and seeing a stranger and nodding hello, good morning or good afternoon.
Exactly. See,
that doesn't cost anything, and it's actually very simple to do. And just getting out, just changing your scenery.
Mow the grass, do gardening.
Even if it's going like at the moment, at the moment it's tumbling down with rain. But even going for a walk in the rain without a raincoat and feeling the rain getting through your clothes and wetting you and getting home warm up, that's actually better than sitting inside and feeling sorry for yourself. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Anyway.
Okay, so
point number two.
Okay. So the point number 2 is mental health is seen in a very dark light. Should the government fund more respite programs to encourage fun and happiness at the health and well-being of people?
I think
well, it is, isn't it?
I think they should, because the thing is, a lot of people don't understand what respite actually is. A lot of people think that respite is just for people who are mentally ill or sick or have some sort of problem or depression. But the truth is, respite can be for absolutely anyone or anyone. And if like one of the things that I used to do is I used to work for the YMCA, and I used to work for a holiday program that took kids from the Redfern area, and they didn't necessarily have to be Indigenous. Some of them were average Australian children from all multicultural walks of life. But those programs were effectively respite, and what they did was they taught very valuable life skills, like the importance of having friends, and also they did all sorts of outdoor activities like archery. I remember there was all sorts of things that they always kept them going. There was never a time where they just said, okay, sit in your camp and do nothing. There was always an activity to do. Everything had an activity to do. So whether it was basically playing on the swings or doing archery or playing splats or even looking at, so I think they actually did canoeing or kayaking. There was always something to do. And at the end of it, basically, after they did all the activities, they had one final activity, which was, what did you learn from all this? What was important? And all the kids were able to mention what they learned and what was so rewarding about those things. And that was basically a form of respite, because not only was it a form of respite for the children, but it was also a form of respite for the parents as well, because they got a break from their kids. And that was was very important. So,
what is respite? Respite is a change of circumstance, a change from your current situation.
Well, respite is basically, it could be considered like a form of rest. So if you were to go on holiday, that's a form of respite. If you were to go to the movies, that's a form of respite. If you're a refugee escaping a war zone and in a refugee camp, that's a form of respite. It's basically an escape from tension. So
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, I think the government should fund more programs that will encourage fun, laughter, smiling, happiness, health. I think it's important that the government should look at and go, okay, we need to build more programs, not just for children, young teens and young adults, but for everybody in every age bracket. Because this way you get out of, like Phil said, you get out of the house, you meet new people, you make new friends for life that will carry you through the ages. I mean, it's important to have that balance between, I no longer feel alone, to, hey, I feel great, I feel fantastic, life is awesome, I've made new friends, I mean, keep contact, I do this, I do that. It'll become a new fun challenge to get out there and to make a better world. I mean, become a better version of yourself, and almost like sort of challenge yourself to learn something new and grow, and to be able to make those friends, and to be able to go, I can't believe I did that. I'm so proud of myself. I'm proud of me. I did that,
Yeah.
Well, mental health is seen in a very dark light, as you say. I mean, look, years and years ago, it used to be said that if there's something wrong with somebody mentally, they should be locked away. And I don't think that sort of thinking has gone some in our society for a lot of people. And when mental health is mentioned, it's generally, this may be skipping ahead, Kat, I'm sorry, but some of these points are rather linked. It's generally said as a negative thing. Yes. There's a problem with your mental health. When, as we discussed before about just getting out, contacting Lifeline, or just getting out and going for a walk with the dog, or go and buy a cup of coffee. The problem with mental health that exists may not actually be in need of professional treatment. There are cases when it is, okay, but it may not be. It may just be a little need for encouragement, and we all experience that. Everybody at some stage in their lives will experience that, and so it's not to be said that everybody suffers from problems with mental health. And I think that's the problem. You see, the definition of the term, and because it's becoming more and more widespread to talk about mental health, we want to get away from the perception that there's something wrong with everybody, but in a sense there is, because we're human, and we have needs, we have relationship needs, and a lot of mental health problems, I think, do stem from faults in relationships around a person, whether it's the way they're treated as children, or by other relatives. Forms of abuse that go on. So it's a lot of it is connected with our relationship with other human beings. If they were perfect, then there'd be very problems, wouldn't there? But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but one of the things that you made an interesting point is that should we give them to everyone to the professionals, and you don't want to head towards that way. I'd like to argue about that point was which professionals. Because there are highly qualified social workers out there who I would deem professionals that do jobs like this, like basically doing what you would consider respite, and it can be a whole lot of fun. I suppose there's different types of professionals. Like there's psychiatrists, for example, and there is such a thing where maybe a client isn't quite right for the professional that they've got, in which case you can ask for a referral and stuff like that. And I don't believe everything can be solved with pills. I think that's just a band-aid solution.
No, definitely not. But is it really necessary to call in a professional? That's the point I'm making.
It's case by case basis. That's my answer.
We seem to think so.
It would be a case by case basis. It would depend on what the problem is.
Indeed.
I think a lot of those respite programs that are currently available, that could be, because they're only temporary, that is actually a good way to build things like self-esteem, build things like confidence, build things like friends, to the point where you might not need that professional help because you've got everything you need. And that's why they're so important, because without those small temporary programs, even if they go for like a week or a day or whatever, without those programs, you'll find that someone's mental health, without any resources, without any knowledge of where to go, and in a world that's filled with stigma, the chances of them actually developing real mental health problems where it'll be harder to fix will escalate, guaranteed.
I think that's the key, to get rid of the stigma, but it probably brings us to the next point you've got there, Kat, which is about who respite should be offered to.
Good point. Third question. Should we limit respite to people who are disabled, or should we have respite for everyone? I think, and this is what I think, my opinion, I think we should offer respite to everybody. Why are we in this country? Why should we limit ourselves or limit the amount of people that should get respite? It should be for everybody. Open the door, let the floodgates open. Offer respite to everybody and anybody who needs it, and watch this country grow. Watch people grow in themselves.
Well, the difficulty arises when you've got to draw that line as to where a disability begins or ends. And you can't really. I mean, there's that's the
point is, if you open up the floodgates and say, hey, respite's for everyone, that actually might minimize the stigma level, because
yes, it will
basically go, well, it's not just for people who are disabled, it's for everyone. It would be the equivalent of seeing a doctor. The doctor might not be just for people who are sick. The doctor could be for someone when you need a checkup just to see if you're okay, or a medical certificate when you want to skip work. Basically.
Yes, I tend to just take that day by day and just have a day or two off, and then you don't have to go to the doctor. That's the best way. But we don't want to. I mean, not only do we want to reduce stigma, we don't want to actually say, well, you've got a disability and you haven't, because in the last 20 years or so, it's been common to say, well, you look at agencies who help employment for people who have disabilities. Yeah. They tend to call themselves not disability, but ability. And if the word disability appears in their name, then the dis is very small and the ability is very big. So they're concentrating on the abilities people do have, and that's a good thing. So, it should be available to everyone. And if it isn't needed, if it's offered and it isn't needed in the end, then when that comes to light, then okay, that's fine.
It's interesting.
There's
how Americans
no worries about that, and that's the best way to go.
It's interesting how Americans actually approach counseling, especially in California, because before there was a point in time where, very clearly, as you're saying, that there was a stigma attached to counselling. But now, every single second person has a counsellor. You're in the in crowd if you have a counsellor. Counsellors are in.
Yeah, I still have friends who say they would never go to a counsellor because they just don't believe in that sort of thing. But yeah.
I mean, I could, if I may, I could speak for myself and say, you know what? When I first started counseling, I was a hot mess. I was pretty much a mess. And I think a year and a half later, it's like a different version of me. I'm smiling more. I'm laughing more. I'm more active in life. I'm more positive and upbeat. I get up, I have breakfast. I listen to music. I do podcasts with you and Leon and Philip. I engage with people. I talk to people. I go off to karaoke. I go out, we go out to watch movies or shop, whatever it is. I just think the importance of counselors is not just for the downtrodden, but it helps to uplift. It helps to give you that zing where now I've gone from once a week or twice a week to every month to 3 months maybe. And it's helped. And if I don't need it, I'll just text my counselor and say, hey, I'm great, doing great. Life is great. Couldn't be feeling any more better than I am. Just heads up, and I'll leave it at that. And I think that's the importance of it. It's the joy of it. And I know, when you say, I know this sounds a bit weird, but or just a little off track, but when you say, mental health is in a dark light, yes it is, but we can bring ourselves out of it. There's so much joy in being happy and being alive and thanking God you're alive, and to be able to wake up every day with a fresh zeal of excitement. And that's what I want to excite our viewers about. It's so awesome. It's so great. You can do so many things in one day and still feel like you haven't had enough.
Actually, I did an assignment, right, about mental health and its relationship to the church or religion in general. And one of the things that they found was the fact that people who actually go to church or go to any sort of religion practice at an elderly age have a higher chance of living, because they're seeing their friends, which means they're in a group of people. They're also more hopeful, they also, because they go to church, they've actually got a purpose. So when you've got a purpose and you've got hope and you're with your friends, you actually have
an upbeat life.
Yeah, you actually have a higher chance of living, as opposed to someone who has no purpose, who has no beliefs, who has no hope in themselves. They're the type of people that will actually drop off quicker. And
studies have been done that show that people who have religious faith are by and large happier than those who don't.
But it depends on what they.
So it depends on circumstances.
It's not so much what they believe per se. It is. I mean, if they believe that somewhere out there that there is a positive entity that might be identified as a guide or might be identified as a spirit, and they concentrate on their own spirit and they enrich their own spirit in some way, shape, or form, whether that's through sports. Or through their friends, or through gatherings, or just constantly getting up in the morning and doing something, they have a 25% chance of actually living longer lives naturally.
We talked about that before. Association with other people is very, very good for us.
Yeah. Exactly. Next point, Horsey, is should we be investing more in programs that help the youth keep off of life on the streets? And my answer is yes. I think we should put more money into our government, into our society, where kids can get living off the streets or being on the streets, and giving them, like, becoming a teacher, a doctor, a counselor, social worker, artist, singer, dancer, actor, putting them in mentorship, coaching, putting them in programs that help them develop life skills and help them develop friendships and get to know get to know themselves again. I mean, that's so important to put a
yes,
positive
certainly.
spin on it.
Actually, I had a friend.
I mean,
oh, go on. You were speaking.
I was just going to say, kids on the street. Initially, yes. In this country, if you want to work, there is work available. It's not actually that hard to find it. I have found, anyway, in my experience, and so there is government support for being able to find a place to live as well. So, but see, talk about youth. I mean, I'm assuming you're talking about teenagers and perhaps up to
Young
age
adults
of
as
20
well.
or 20s.
Well,
That's a fairly confusing time of life. So that might, and
when
assisting people to find out who they are and what their abilities and gifts are, and that is quite important. Actually, that is very important to.
It's true, and don't
fund
forget, kids who say, for example, if you put them in chef school, for example, you teach them not just the life skills and meeting new friends, you teach them the importance of hygiene, you teach them the importance of self-satisfaction,
yes,
of proudness, of
creativity,
of feeling like you are now feeling yourself again. You are feeling that little fire, that little, it's like when you start a fire like back in the olden days with the wooden, like that.
I've seen young people who are just, they put them in TAFE courses and things like that and try and get them, and they just sit there and not interested. All they're interested in is just doing nothing. And the problem is that they haven't discovered, or it hasn't been shown to them, or they haven't realized, or they're not involved in something that they're passionate about, right? Now, as soon as they'll be into it. No problem there. You look at someone like Kyle Sandilands, who's on the radio. Now, I don't like the style of radio that Kyle does. I don't listen to Kyle, though I did 10, 15 years ago for a little while. I don't like what he does on the radio. I think it's actually a waste of, I think it's hot air. But he was a street kid and he got into radio. Now, he found something that he was passionate about. Regardless of what was going on in his life, he got into it. And he persisted and he persisted and he persisted. And now he's at the top of his profession, you might say, though. If that's the top of the profession, then I'm a monkey's uncle. But there you go. He found something he was passionate about. And the fact that he was living on the streets actually in the end didn't matter. And living because he was gainfully employed. If he hadn't found that something that he was passionate about, goodness knows what might have happened to him. He might have even, taken his own life. Who knows? But that's what I'm talking about. And that's pretty simple. Find something that you're passionate about. And regardless of what's going on, get into it and keep going and keep going and keep going. And eventually people around you will recognize that you're passionate about that thing and you're good at it, and you'll get a gig.
Like, see, for myself, radio is still my passion, and so is podcasting. And podcasting is podcasting is a form of radio. It's a form of before they couldn't see me or you. Now they can see the three of us, and they can relate. And if you have ambitions of becoming a chef or a newsreader or a podcaster or radio star or whatever it is, as you've said, if you've got it in you, do it. And plan a vision board. That's another great thing is a vision board is plan your goal, your dreams and your goals and your motives and why you want to do that and your intentions, and plan your vision and tick each one off as you go.
Well, actually, I had a friend of mine who was working for a charity, and what he would do is he was actually quite smart. So what he would do was, instead of getting the kids to do really boring things like table tennis and whatever, he would get them to do karate. And so he would have something like a Japanese day. So he would, because he used to be a chef, he would cook them sushi for lunch. He basically called up a sensei to teach them karate, and got them to basically learn a bit of an introduction to karate for about a week or so. He would teach his clients, especially call them, about Japan, and the history of Japan and the culture of Japan. And then the next week after that, he might do Spain and start cooking them a Spanish dish, and then teach them the culture of Spain. And the kids really got into this because not only did they get something to eat, but they got to learn the culture, and it was fun. And I think the key to proper respite or proper attention, that where you want to grab hold of children and get them to learn a part of their identity, or learn a part of maybe some goals and dreams, is interest. Don't give them something that you know that they're going to get bored over, because to be perfectly honest, people are going to get bored over table tennis, guaranteed. Okay, but you know what? My friend would basically, the game Guitar Hero. Have you heard of that?
Yes, of course.
Well, he was given, someone donated, I think it was 14 Guitar Hero packs. And he created his own competition with his own clients, paid for by his charity, and they had a great time. And then after that, they would do other things. I think he was working with schizophrenia people, actually. And one of the things that it's quite difficult. Sometimes people who have schizophrenia, they don't like taking their medication. So he would actually get all these PS2 games, which happened to be like 52,000 of them. And he'd say, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll let you play PS2 for as long as you want, on the condition that you basically take your pills in the morning. And that worked for them as well. And if they want it to be difficult, they'd just say, no PS2 for you. And they go, oh, fine, all right. And then he'd take the pills, and they would take the pills and let them play games all day. So if there is a way that you can basically get people, like young people or old people or middle-aged people, to basically have some sort of activity in their lives that doesn't have to be dreary and boring and whatever. And you can go out and think, as long as you can think outside the box of what real interest actually is, then you can still keep people in good mental health whilst allowing them to have a great time. And I think that's what we really need to aim towards.
It comes down to finding what they're interested in, like I said before, but that's the key. And being sensitive to what that is, and allowing them to tell you what that is.
Yes.
And open up and listening to what people have to say.
Exactly.
If there's more of that, it'd be a lot easier.
Yeah.
Next question. Do we need to change our language to remove negative stigmas attached to someone who suffers from mental illness? And my answer is yes, absolutely, 100%. I agree with that. We do need
the
to
language. Yeah, we've already talked about that. But how would we?
I think we should, to make it easier on people who suffer from mental illness, I think we should make it easier to turn the negative into a positive, and talk to them in a more uplifting manner, in a more positive light, using a positive tone in your voice, instead of scolding someone who has mental illness, sitting them down and connecting with them one-on-one, and using a lighter, calmer, peaceful tone of voice, and sort of removing a negative stigma and turning it into a positive ray of light, and giving them the ambition of they're not scared, they're not frightened, and they are able to sort of go, oh wow, that is so awesome, and having to come back to that person and saying, thank you for teaching me that. Like, thank you for lifting me up with that. Thank you for inspiring me.
But there is like I used to run, well, I still run confidence programs actually. But one of the things that a lot of confidence programs will actually tell you is to change your language. And so things like words like impossible. So if you
Too possible.
if you remove, if you change the word from impossible to say challenging, then or difficult, then someone can go, oh yes, it's difficult, but it's not impossible. And so once you change the word to something that might be difficult but still possible, you can accomplish a lot of great things. But if you tell your brain constantly negative words, okay, your brain will just think this, I'm in a box and I can't move. So the way to basically break down the box is to change your language. And I remember I used to go to anger management actually. And my anger management counselor told me that never call yourself an idiot. Never call yourself stupid. Never say
that's right.
Never say you're stupid, because if you tell yourself that enough times,
You start to believe it.
You'll believe it. But if you keep telling yourself that you're intelligent and that you're wonderful and you're good looking and you're smart and you can accomplish anything, you can, because your mind will feed off that information that you're giving to yourself and make use of it. And all those invisible barriers which would prevent you from doing certain things will just disappear because you'll walk through.
So everyone has a contribution to make. Everyone has a contribution to make. And, you know, I like to say no one is useless. You know how sometimes you get frustrated with somebody else and you say, oh, you're useless. Well, that's not the case. That person might not be very good at something in particular, which is why you're making that comment. But they are good at other things. And everybody has a contribution to make. It might just be that the contribution is not quite being made in the right area.
Well, that's a very good point. I mean, maybe like if someone changes that to, well, you're not very good at this, are you? But that doesn't mean you can't be very good at something else.
Like
is this really what you want to be doing?
That's
and then eventually the answer will come out, well, no, not really. Okay, right, good.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I've established that, because I was about to say a change of language. I mean, what would you say to someone instead of saying to them that I think you have a problem with mental illness?
Well,
I thought of,
Well,
you go first.
All right, so well, the first thing I'd say to that is I wouldn't let someone determine what I should or shouldn't be. I should honestly make those decisions for myself. Now I'm being told what to do. I should let you speak.
Well, I did tell you to go first.
Yes.
But I don't think anybody heard it because Kat was rabbiting on. So anyway.
Sorry.
I was going to say, okay, instead of saying to someone, I think you have a problem with mental illness, you could say something like, look, I think there might be difficulty here with your understanding of the direction your life is taking at the moment. Something like that, which says, well, yeah, there's a problem, but it's not a problem that's insurmountable, nor are we going to put a label on it because maybe we don't quite know what it is. But we need to investigate it. We need to talk about it and determine what it is, and if it is a problem at all. And through that, we can find a way forward, because we're always going to be moving forward anyway.
Well, the question is,
what do you reckon?
Who is it a problem for? So, is it a problem for you,
yes.
or is it a problem for someone else?
Because they might say, "Oh, I haven't got a problem. It's your problem." If you reckon there's a problem, it's your problem, and they're probably right.
Well, I was going to say, the next question is, what activities could help lift the burden of people suffering mental health issues such as traumas.
Or
I mean,
because of trauma they've been through, perhaps. Yeah.
I think activities could be counseling, talking to people, getting out there, learning, understanding, being able to cope, being able to feel like they're not, as you say, boxed in, being able to experience life, do normal things, and be part of society and grow and be a better version of themselves. And I think it's important for people who experience traumas to sort of be able to talk about that trauma and turn that trauma into.
But that would take time.
It, of course, would take time. But you hit on a point before that I want to bring in, which you said, taking the impossible and making it possible. I mean, all of us at one point have suffered traumas in our lives.
Well, the best thing about a trauma is that it's over. If you can talk about it, then it's over.
Yes, absolutely.
And so remind people of that and say, well, actually, what you're talking about, I mean, it's not good to dwell on things that have happened in the past, but you can't help it sometimes. I have a good friend who's mentioning things to me when I talk to him on the phone that's happened 20 or 30 years ago, and how that has hurt him and how that has affected him. And sometimes I say to him, I say, look, I know it doesn't remove the pain that's caused, but it was a long time in the past. It's actually not happening now. It hasn't been happening for 3 decades, and so. But that's the best thing about it. It's actually over, and it reassures someone who's been through a trauma of that it's actually not happening now, even though the vestiges of it are still happening because it's going around in their head, and they can't kind of get over it in a way. It's not happening now, and so that's a positive start to say, well, yeah, that's right. Even though I've still got the memory of it, I'm not actually going through it at the moment anymore.
I think the only last thing I want to say about this from me is that we have to learn to break that cycle. It's a cycle that's ongoing, but we need to break it in order to let sunlight into our lives, into our minds, into our bodies, into our, that's why I wanted to do this topic, because I think it's important to talk about the positive things in life, the way we can do activities. And I think we have to break that cycle in order to begin life and start life from back to zero again and rebuild ourselves and be able to rebuild our lives again. I think you make a very strong, valid point. Your turn.
I agree with you, Horsey, but the thing is, depending on what the trauma is, because you've got to remember that when you invest a lot of emotion into a particular trauma, just say an accident, car crash accident, for example, unless you've got someone to talk to about it, this is why counseling is so important, right? It'll never really be diluted. And if it's a death, the funny thing about a death is that you can never really forget a death, particularly if it's a friend of yours or a loved one, because you've put a lot of your personal emotion into that one person. It's almost like putting energy into that one person and then feeling like they're gone and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So even though the trauma might have happened 20 years ago, as you say, the only thing really you can do about that is talk about it, and over time, the pain will slowly dilute, but it'll never really leave you per se.
It waxes and wanes, but as you say, the old proverb that a problem shared is a problem halved. Talking about things, that's right. And I mean, even again and again and again will help dilute it. You're right, it may never go away. I mean, that's the nature of this life. It's actually not I was going to use the word impossible, but I'd better not. It's very difficult to make the pain and the effects of trauma in this life go away completely.
What I think is that when we lose a friend and we lose a loved one, which we've all experienced time and time again, we go through the normal channels of grieving. We grieve and we grieve hard. But to honor their memory and their life is to go, they're here with me. They're here with me. They go everywhere with me. I carry their memories. I carry their stories and their legacies, but I also carry the happy memories. It's the happy memories of a lot of jokes, a lot of laughter, a lot of smiles, a lot of positivity, a lot of energy. And I think,
so what are you going to do to honor their memory? And that leads to probably the last point you've got there is using stress as a tool, as a positive tool, saying, right, well, how can I react to this in a positive way and in an encouraging way? What action can I take to actually to help and to move forward, and to encourage myself, and to be spurred on in a way by what I've been through.
Exactly. And I think people who suffer from, like, say, when it comes to anxiety, it's possible to use anxiety as a tool, and it's negative versus positive. And it's also good to balance both stress factors. So when you're feeling negative, try and find a happy medium, a happy balance. And this topic is all about happy. I think it's important to use that happy to overpower the bad and the sad and go, no, I'm going to do something that's going to make me feel 100% better in here and in here. And I'm going to draw on that and use that as a tool to help my anxiety and make me smile again and lift me back up again. And this way, when I become the better version of myself and I heal completely, I can inspire people around me, and that chain starts, the ball starts to roll and roll and roll.
Well, even prior to that, before you reach that point, something you alluded to a minute ago, Kat, was you can say, right, well, something bad has happened or is happening, but how many other good things can I point to in my life that are there as well? The old thing is that says count your blessings. There are always good things that we can point to and say, oh, there's that and there's that and there's that and there's that, even though there's this here that I'm not too keen on, and there's this here that I'm not too keen on. And generally, when we think about it, we can actually name more good things than bad things that are going on if we really put our mind to it. So that helps me a lot.
But one of the things about stress is that we're actually meant to have stress.
Yes.
And negative stress and positive stress are both very, very useful tools. So, positive stress will actually give us drive to accomplish things. So just say, you've really got that drive and that passion to accomplish something. Well, that's actually just positive stress. Whereas negative stress at the same time, that can actually help you as well, because that can go, okay, well, we know that this is bad. So what do I need to do to avoid this negative feeling? So both are actually quite useful if used properly. But if you have too much of one or too much of the other, it will become overwhelming. So if you have too much positive stress, you'll get to the point where you'll just procrastinate, and that accomplishes nothing. But if you have too much negative stress, then you'll feel pain, most likely around the shoulders, and you worry. And you worry and you get burnt out. But you do need to have a balance between the two.
I don't think, from what we've talked about tonight, I don't think anybody will really feel it now. But if you do, then shoot us a message, okay?
Okay.
Kat, are you there?
Yes, I'm listening. Sorry, what did you say?
I said if you do feel a bit negative, then shoot us a message. And if you feel positive, shoot us a message as well.
Yeah, please do. You know where we are. We would love some more, comments. Get a big huge shout out to the Gateway Productions. They've kept in touch with me since the first mental health video, and I want to give them a shout out to this one as well. So Gateway Productions, if you're there, let us know. If you feel a certain way, Please don't forget, again, Lifeline, www.lifeline.org.au or 13 11 14 or beyondblue.org.au. Or if you're overseas, please contact a friend or family or contact your local crisis support center. And the best thing you can do for yourself is to go, I can be, I can do, I can say, I can think, I can feel, and start the ball rolling. And if you feel low or you feel happy, please feel free to message us. We love your messages, and subscribe our way, and let us know what you think of this video. Other than that, I think
Amen.
Amen. We've covered just about everything.
All right, no worries. And if you are interested, please subscribe. Really appreciate it. And
we'll give you a shout out.
We'll give you a shout out.
Thank you so much, Horsey, for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next Thursday night with another great topic.
Kat and Phil will look forward to that. Uru.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah, that's right.